Makes nose cleaning easy so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, and feel healthier.
I love this thing.
It's nice to breathe.
Navage Clean Nose, Healthy Life.
It is the story everyone is talking about. Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. Two exes squaring off in court, accusing each other of defamation and domestic violence. They met in 2009. They got married in 2015, but split in 2016. And now 6 years later, they are reliving the ugliest moments of their relationship.
Slapped me across the face. He said, "You think it's so funny? You think it's funny? You think you're a funny?"
She threw the large bottle, and it made contact and shattered everywhere.
But their stories are diametrically opposed. Johnny and Amber both say they are victims of the other's abuse. Tonight, we bring in a body language expert to see if there are any signs of deception and to see what their reactions tell us.
I did assault a couple of cabinets, but I did not touch Miss Heard.
He said he'd kill me if I ever spoke to him like that in front of his kids again, if I ever embarrass him, and he just shoved me in embarrassed.
And we compare the dueling psychological opinions of Amber Heard. Does she suffer from borderline personality disorder? Or did the alleged abuse cause PTSD? Tonight, we take you inside the story playing out in Fairfax County, Virginia, Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Hope we got some things done today, right? An opportunity to exhale for just a second, but we're going to dive right back into it. It is the case that obviously everyone is talking about. You see it whether you're on social media or you're just going to the store and talking to a friend. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone is trying to figure out what the truth is in this whole thing. Now, this is a trial, so like every trial and every witness, when they take the witness stand, they take an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And Amber Heard took that oath. She's up on the stand, and she told her story. Hasn't been cross-examined yet. This week is the countdown to the cross-examination of Amber Heard, which should begin about a week from today. We'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, she has told her story. And, you know, that story came after she took the oath. Well, Johnny Depp took the same oath, but had a much different story. You think about what we're hearing here is Johnny Depp is you know, I never hit a woman. I would never do that. I'm the victim here. Amber Heard, Johnny's out of control. Johnny is totally out of control. We're talking about criminal attacks that she's describing. And Johnny Depp saying, well, my finger, how do you think I lost my finger? I didn't do it to myself. She did it to me. So now you've got the jury, and the job of this jury is they've got to figure out how to spot a liar. And they're not trained professionals. They're like regular folks like us, right? I mean, you listen to testimony, you take a look at some of the corroborating evidence. If it does or doesn't, does it have the ring of truth to you? Are they consistent in what they are saying about what happened? Does it make sense? And how does one story versus the other story, is there any sort of common denominators where, okay, well, maybe that's where the truth is, and then we kind of figure it out from there? I don't know. This is going to be a tough job for this jury to figure out the truth, but that's their job. And to figure out the truth, you've got to figure out who's lying, who's being deceptive on the witness stand. So what we're going to do for you tonight is we're going to bring in a pro to take a look and a listen to Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. They both testified. We're going to take some of their testimony, and then, you know, a lot of times you can see the reaction to that testimony could be as revealing as the testimony itself. But I don't know. I'm not the professional. Let's bring in our expert. Joining us tonight from Orlando, Florida, human behavior expert, Susan Constantine back. Great to see you, Susan.
Hey there, Vinnie. Thanks for inviting me.
Okay, let's do it this way, and I think this will be the best way to do it for the folks who are watching at home, is I'll play a piece of testimony. Some of it we'll see just the person testifying. Sometimes we'll see the person testifying, and we'll see the other person reacting or listening to the testimony. You know, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. So let's begin with Johnny Depp, who's the plaintiff in all of this, and I want to take this is a key statement that he makes right towards the beginning of his testimony. And if the jury believes this, there's a good chance he could win this whole thing. Let's take a listen.
There were arguments and things of that nature, but never did I myself reach the point of striking Miss Heard in any way, nor have I ever struck any woman in my life.
It's a simple statement. Susan, what are you seeing? What are you hearing in the way he delivers that significant testimony to this jury?
Yes. First of all, he's being truthful. And I'm watching his eyes. They go up, they go side, they go back down. What he's doing is processing all of those experiences that he had, recall those conversations that he had. We also got to process. You can see that the stress, we're at this very serious moment. You can also see in his jawline and around his mouth the seriousness of what he's talking about. He really is in that moment, and everything is in sync. So what I'm looking at is he's talking, is his body language and facial expressions in sync with his words? Is the timing right? Are the eyes moving in the right direction? Looking at the jury a couple of times, he's trying to make a point of, I've never struck a woman. And when he's doing that, he looks over, and he says it 3 different times, different types of ways. I believe he's being.
Susan, I'm trying to read your body language because we've got a little bit of an audio issue. So we're not hearing every word that you're saying, and everyone at home, myself, we want to hear those words. So we'll play. Were you saying, I'm trying to interpret what you just said, right? That it seemed truthful to you? You didn't see any indications of deception?
That's correct.
Okay, I think the audio is getting a little better. So let's move on. We've got another piece of Johnny Depp's testimony. This time we will see Johnny Depp, but we'll also see Amber Heard as he's testifying. So I'd love to get your take on both Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Let's take a look.
And my hand is on the edge of the bar, like that, you know, leaning over, the fingers like that, and she threw the large bottle, and it made contact and shattered everywhere. And I honestly didn't feel the pain at first at all. I felt no pain whatsoever. What I felt was, I felt heat. I felt heat, and I felt as if something were dripping down my hand, you know. And then I looked down and realized that the tip of my finger had been severed.
Such an important piece of testimony from that case. We want to hear what Susan has to say about it, so we're just fixing the audio momentarily. But what I'm going to do is show you another piece of testimony, this time from Amber Heard, and then by the time we hear this, we should be able to bring Susan back and get her take on what Johnny Depp testified to and then what Amber Heard testified to. Let's take a look.
loved him so much. I felt like he recognized me and I recognized him, and there was just something there that he was the love of my life. And he was. He was, but he was also this other thing. He was also this other thing. And that other thing was awful thing that would come out and take over, and it was, you couldn't see the Johnny I loved underneath it. It was this other thing. And no one told him, no one was honest with him, no one, he'd pass out in his own vomit, he'd lose control of his body, he'd lose control, and everyone would clean up after him. I cleaned up after him. I mean, this man lost control of his bowels, and I cleaned up after him. His security cleaned up after him, changed his pants in front of me. He would pass out in his own sick.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to fix that audio for you folks. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll bring back in Susan, get her reaction to some of this testimony. Don't go anywhere.
feet, privates, and beyond.
Do you recall what Mr. Depp was saying to you when he had the bottle and was pushing it against your pubic bone?
He said that he'd kill me. So I'll kill you. He said it to me over and over again. He said I'll kill you.
Important testimony. This is a sexual assault. She is describing to the jury, and at the end, looking at Johnny Depp from Chanley Painter inside the courtroom. One of the only times she looked directly at Johnny Depp. Susan Constantine, human behavior expert, still with us. We've reconnected old-fashioned way by phone. Susan, tell me your thoughts about Amber Heard's testimony right there. It's so significant. She's talking about she's describing a brutal sexual assault right there.
There's a lot that's going on here. When we're talking about this brutal attack, you would expect to see a sense of horror or a sense of fear taking you kind of back to that moment of where she was being violated. And what I'm looking at is I see a lot of what we call self-loathing. I see her chin pouting up, it wrinkles. It's more of I feel sorry for myself. It's a pouting expression that what I'm seeing from her. The other thing is that when this incident happened, 6-8 years ago, and when somebody has gone through therapy, someone that has maybe gone through EMDR therapy, they learn to kind of normalize those trigger moments. And what happens in this instance, when I'm hearing her recall this, it's as if it were happening right then. But the problem is it's over-exaggerated. So when I'm watching her facial expressions, it's what we call overperforming or overfacing. Now I want you to look at when she was actually hearing this before her face was very stoic. No expression, no movement, no startle responses, no raising of the eyebrow or pouting. Now she's telling the story and she's putting it on full steam ahead, and the expressions, the timing, the movements, everything is off. She is in performance here.
All right, let's go. We've got one other moment where, and this is out of sight of the jury, so they did not see it. They were already gone. Amber's getting off the witness stand. Johnny is standing up, and there's a moment where they seem to have this eye contact. She backs up. We're looking at it now. What does that tell you about her behavior and his behavior in that moment?
Yes, well, this was Amber's what we call startle response. You see her eyes kind of quickly flash up. Her mouth slightly drops down. They make eyes. She realizes he's right in front of her, and then she kind of steps back to get out of the way. But I don't see fear in her facial expressions. It's more what we call a startle response. And then we see Depp. He locks eyes at her. And what he does is really interesting, because as he starts to slightly turn away, he gives her a shoulder gaze, and he's holding it for 2 or 3 seconds. That's a form of, of intimidation. I've heard you. I'm looking at you. She doesn't even make gaze at him whatsoever. And then you see what we call a cheek pucker, and you see this with Depp, and that is a form of exasperation. And then his mouth becomes more stretched, and you see him do kind of a double shoulder shrug. That is a shrill. It's just like, he didn't want to even see her. So, and then he smirks, and there's a form of contempt and duping delight. So there's multiple emotions that are going on there. Smirking is contempt. It's kind of like he makes eye contact with her, and there's a form of arousal that came from that little 2-second, 3-second glance, like, I got you, I'm watching you. So there was a lot of stuff that was going on in that interaction.
And Susan, I just want to go back to Amber Heard. There was a huge question I forgot to ask you about it. So you said over-exaggeration. Is anything that you saw equate to deception, where not telling the truth versus over-exaggeration seems to me, when I hear that, I hear it's got a grain of truth in it, but it's not completely truthful. How should we interpret what you're saying?
Thank you so much for asking. All right, so what I'd like to share with you is that most of what we're hearing is going to be truthful. There's fragments of pieces that are distorted, that are misleading. And what we're seeing here is that over-exaggeration. When a person feels that they're not really convincing someone, they tend to pump it up a bit. They plump it up. So they become more exaggerated. And when they do that, they fall into the deception category. So it's hard to take anything they say as being the full truth, because they've had to pump it up and exaggerate it too much to the point of it throws it right into the deception category, so it's not credible.
And are you seeing anything from Johnny Depp's reactions from counsel table as Amber Heard is testifying that is significant?
Well, he doesn't want to make gaze at her. He stonewalls. So that's when he's looking down. He's kind of disengaging from her. He's saying to her, I don't want to give you even an eye glance. I'm not even going to pay attention to you. A lot of times you'll see he'll bring his hand up over. And in fact, at one point when he was talking about a very horrible incident with the bottle, you see him scratching the top of his eye. And his dad is just in disbelief. He's like, I cannot believe she is actually saying this. And then he's got the hand over his face, and that's a form of facial blocking, eye blocking, just kind of blocking out the information he's hearing because it's just too painful to hear, and so he tends to eye block.
Susan Constantine, I'm so glad that we were able to hear you. Your insight is fascinating, and we always appreciate your time. Susan Constantine, human behavior expert, joining us tonight from Orlando. Thanks so much, Susan.
Thank you.
All right, we've got some other guests lined up that we want to bring in right now. Joining us in Spencer, North Carolina, violence against women expert consultant Julie Owens is with us in New York City, family law attorney, managing partner at matrimonial law firm Berkman, Bodker, Newman, and Shine. Jacqueline Newman is back with us. And also in New York City, psychotherapist and host of Talking Live on Facebook Watch and the Bite Side podcast, Dr. Robbie Ludwig. Welcome to you all. Thank you so much. As we've convened here, the first thing I want to talk to everyone about is Amber Heard's first testimony about her accusation of the first physical violence in the relationship. I think it's a significant event for the jury to try to figure out. And she is saying it is the first time that Johnny Depp ever struck her physically. And it all involved a tattoo that he had on his arm. It was originally Winona Ryder. He changed it to Always a Wino or Always Wino, something like that. So there was this back and forth. So let's take a listen first to Amber Heard's description of what she said happened.
I was sitting on the couch and we were talking. We were having a normal conversation, you know, just there was no fighting, no argument, nothing. And he was drinking, and I didn't realize at the time, but I think he was using cocaine because it was like there was a jar of cocaine out on the table. I realized that sounds weird, but it was like an actual vintage jar of it. But I didn't see him use it at the time, so I didn't really factor that in. I just, you know, he's drinking and we're talking and there's music playing and he's smoking cigarettes and we're sitting next to each other on the couch. And I asked him about the tattoo he has on his arm. And to me, it just looked like black marks. I didn't know what it said. It just looked like muddled, faded tattoo that was hard to read. And I said, what does it say? And he said it says wino. It says wino. And I didn't see that. I thought he was joking because it didn't look like it said that at all. And I laughed. It was that simple. I just laughed because I thought he was joking. And slapped me across the face. And I laughed. I laugh because I didn't know what else to do. I thought, this must be a joke. This must be a joke. Because I didn't know what was going on. I just stared at him, kind of laughing still, thinking that he was gonna start laughing too to tell me it was a joke, but he didn't. He said, "You think it's so funny? You think it's funny? You think you're a funny?" And he slapped me again. Like, it was clear it wasn't a joke anymore.
Okay, so let's break this down. And Julie, I want to start with you. The nature of this first accusation by Amber Heard, the first physical violence that she says she experienced, her reaction. Some people are wondering about the reaction of the man you love, the man you've married, has just slapped you across the face in an act of violence, and you are laughing. Is that something that is consistent or inconsistent with the many women that you have spoken to and in your expertise in this area? Is that something that is plausible?
Actually, it is. I think we have ideas about how victims should act and what they should or shouldn't do and what their expression should be. But the reality is, when someone has trauma, especially if it's cumulative, there have been a lot of things going on in their life, and they are not going to necessarily react the way you think they should. Laughter actually can be from shock or from nerves. Someone can learn that someone close to them died and burst out laughing instead of crying. It's a physiological response. So I don't think we can make a lot of judgments based on that. To me, having worked with thousands of abused women, I listen for the ring of truth in a story. And I hear certain examples and details that are minute that are not typical in false allegations, for example.
Dr. Robbie Ludwig, there's two parts to this, right? There's the accusation about Johnny Depp and how he's acting and how he's reacting to this situation. There's how Amber Heard is reacting to the violence. Your thoughts and the introduction of this jar of cocaine, it seems to be a big part of it, because it seems Amber Heard's, what she's telling us about Johnny Depp is that there's really two Johnny Depps. There's a Johnny Depp who's on drugs and under the influence, and then there's the other Johnny Depp.
And that is certainly possible. And I'm sure that Amber experienced Johnny that way. And also people with borderline personality disorder, if we are to assume that disorder is correct, often split. And they see people in a very idealized way, and then they also see people in a very dark way. But I did notice in the clip, when Amber mentioned a jar of cocaine, that you see Johnny Depp looking to his lawyer like almost in shock over the word jar. that was kind of a shocking word to him. So I think what we're hearing is certainly Amber's telling of the story and telling of a very disturbing situation between the two of them. But because her presentation style is so dramatic, sometimes it's hard to know whether there's acting involved, because she is an actress, and maybe that's unfair. But I think that's how a lot of the audience is seeing Amber. They're looking for clues to see if she's acting or in fact telling a truth.
Jacqueline Newman, this is a he said, she said, but this he and this she are different than most he and she's when they're battling inside a courtroom. They're both professional actors, right? And that's a fact that can't be lost in all of this. Ultimately, though, this jury of ultimately 7 who will be deliberating have to figure out what the truth is as they hear Amber Heard's testimony and Johnny Depp's denial that this ever happened.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be challenging. I mean, I think the court of public opinion is probably not siding, as I understand, very much with Amber Heard. That said, they're going to have to look at all the facts. They're going to have to look at the credibility of all the witnesses, not just Johnny and not just Amber. So when they consider everything and kind of look at the facts as a whole, they're going to have to decide who's telling the truth. And then when they make that decision, then they're going to decide what they're going to do with the rest of the case.
You know, it's interesting. We not only have Johnny Depp and Amber Heard with different versions of things, we also have a battle of the experts in this case. When we come back, we're going to talk about the dueling psychological evaluations of Amber Heard and who is she? Is it borderline personality disorder? Is it PTSD? When we come back, we'll break it all down.
and calibrate.com.
I would yell at him, I'd scream at him, I'd call him ugly names. So ashamed of the names we'd call each other. It was awful. It was awful. We both got into that pattern. It was so, you know, I felt so angry that this was happening to me, and it just felt so unfair, you know? It felt like nothing I could do, felt like nothing I could do would change the sobriety patterns, felt like nothing I could do would stand up for him, and nothing I did made him stop hitting me.
Amber Heard describing a very toxic relationship, but from her perspective and her testimony versus Johnny Depp's testimony, very different when it comes to the physical violence in that relationship. Amber Heard said it was Johnny Depp who was the one who was physically abusive. Now, her testimony is what this jury is going to try to figure out. Is the truth, is it not the truth? Same with Johnny Depp. But the difference between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard is that Amber Heard has been evaluated by psychological experts. One testified for Johnny Depp, the other testified for Amber Heard. Let's take a look as Joy Lim Nakrin breaks down the battle of the psychological experts.
The dueling defamation cases of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard have also featured dueling experts. Psychologists serving as witnesses for each have given very different accounts of what happened.
She would suddenly be one way, and then she would become very animated.
The abuse by Mr. Depp, he called her a number of names, frequently whore, slut.
Depp's psychological expert, Dr. Shannon Curry, testified that Heard suffered from 2 personality disorders.
As a result of the work that you performed, did you form any opinions with respect to Ms. Heard?
I did.
What were those opinions?
The results of Ms. Heard's evaluation supported 2 diagnoses: borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder.
And she suggested these disorders led Heard to commit violence and abuse.
She told a story about, I suppose, they were shopping for Thanksgiving accoutrements, something to prepare for Thanksgiving, and Ms. Heard struck her in the face, sort of out of the blue, which is, I thought was interesting, because that is one of those signs of borderline personality disorder where if a friend or a loved one isn't meeting your needs in that moment, people with borderline personality disorder can be very caring in their relationships. As long as their needs are being met, they feel that their needs should be met when they want them met, at a specific level. And if they're not, then that anger, that sense of harm causes them to react. So the striking Ms. Pennington, per Ms. Pennington's report in the declaration or the testimony, I thought was pretty consistent.
Dr. Dawn Hughes spent nearly 30 hours evaluating Amber Heard before serving as her witness. She testified for Heard, saying she appeared to have been abused by Depp.
The main opinion is that Ms. Heard's report of intimate partner violence and the records that I reviewed is consistent with what we know in the field about intimate partner violence, characterized by physical violence, psychological aggression, sexual violence, coercive control, and surveillance behaviors.
Even more, she argued that the abuse was so severe, Heard suffered post-traumatic stress disorder, all because of Johnny Depp.
I diagnosed Ms. Heard with post-traumatic stress disorder, and the cause was the intimate partner violence by Mr. Depp. That was what was pushing the symptoms. That was what was related to the intrusive phenomena. That was related to her avoidance. That was related to her differences in her mood. That was related to her avoidance efforts. So it was the cause was the intimate partner violence by Mr. Depp.
And of course, attorneys for each side took aim at the other, trading blame through testimony.
You cannot testify that Johnny Depp was not abused, can you?
I can testify that he had physical acts of violence perpetrated on him, as well as psychological aggressive acts perpetrated upon him.
No further questions.
Let's bring back in our experts. This is significant because, you know, if the jury, Jacqueline Newman, let me start with you, family law attorney, the jury has to come to a determination on what's going on with Amber Heard. And you have these dueling experts. How important, from your perspective, is their testimony for this jury in figuring out if Amber Heard is telling the truth?
Well, I think it is very important, and courts are going to give a lot, or juries are going to give a lot of weight to what experts are saying. I think they also have to recognize that each expert is being hired by one side. And so there is the argument of them being hired guns. And so you're in a situation where they're also not speaking to each other. Like Amber Heard's attorney, her expert did not speak to Johnny Depp. She didn't interview Johnny Depp. So she's really concluding all of her analysis on what's being presented by Amber Heard. And so I think a jury has to take all of that into consideration and realize what the source of the information is when they're making their determination of how much weight to give to the testimony.
Dr. Robbie Ludwig, you're our hired gun tonight. Your thoughts about the jury trying to figure this out? Is there a way to believe both experts at the same time with the conclusions they've come to?
Yeah, I'm so struck with the either or analysis, because someone can have PTSD and have borderline personality disorder and have histrionic personality disorder. They can very easily co-occur. And in some cases, PTSD can be more extreme in people who suffer from borderline personality disorder, because both disorders are prompted by a lot of trauma in a person's history. So I would have liked that aspect or that knowledge to be stated somewhere for the jury to understand that these experts aren't necessarily not agreeing with one another. They're just looking at it from a very distinct perspective. I would like to see the expert for Amber Heard be asked by Dr. Curry, let's say, can she have PTSD and borderline personality disorder? Because the answer would have to be yes. And where does that leave us? Well, both experts could be correct.
Julie Owens, let me ask you about PTSD. And it seems, we've heard the testimony, this abuse, according to Amber Heard, is happening early on in the relationship. She ends up marrying Johnny Depp. From your experience, folks who are being abused, women who are being abused, suffering PTSD, and then marrying their abuser, is that something that is common as well?
That's a really good question, Vinnie. Actually, she probably didn't have PTSD then. A lot of times what happens is before the couple marries, the abuse is lower level and it escalates after marriage. And we know that he was abusive because it was found to be credible in a civil case in the UK. And of the different things that we've heard he has done, she says he's done to her: slapping, hitting, in her words, choking, sexually assaulting, and so forth and so on. That is domestic violence. If you look at it from the outside, it is a cluster of things. It's not just physical abuse. There's a lot of psychological abuse. And victims who have trauma reactions very often are misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, and histrionic personality disorder, and lots of other things. Yes, they can be concurrent, but what we know is that between 30 and 80-something% of victims, survivors of domestic violence, actually do meet full criteria for PTSD. And when I worked with them in research and therapy, they very, very often had been misdiagnosed. Very often had been misdiagnosed. And by people who weren't experts in trauma. They were experts in other areas. But her behavior on the stand, in my opinion, is exactly what I would expect from a survivor, except it went on over years, you remember, so she's looking back. But it's very consistent. And her behavior, such as feeling guilt and sorrow and not putting him down and trashing him and calling him names as he has done her behavior is what I recognize as a victim. And his deny, minimize, blame, call her names, put her down, actually is pretty classic abuser. So I'm not saying it's cut and dried, but it's very clear to me, no question, who the victim is here. That doesn't mean she didn't hit him or yell at him or throw things at him, because victims will do that after a while out of fear, out of resentment. They do get angry. And when they do that, sometimes they're living in a culture of violence, and they do strike back. But that's what we call resistive violence, or sometimes it's self-defense. But it's not the same thing. It's not about power and control. It's not about coercive control. She was obviously afraid of him. Victims are afraid. Abusers aren't.
Julie Owens,
afraid.
We're out of time for tonight, but appreciate your insight and your expertise. Dr. Robbie Ludwig and Jacqueline Newman, thank you as well. We'll have you all back soon. And as we continue to try to understand what is happening down in Fairfax County, Virginia. In the meantime, when we come back, how is all of this ultimately playing in Hollywood? We'll bring in someone from Variety magazine, chief correspondent Elizabeth Wagmeister, to let us know. We know what's happening outside the courtroom, but how's this playing in Hollywood? That's next.
Where your hard work pays off.
This doesn't normally happen at courthouses across America, but it's happening down in Fairfax County, Virginia. Day after day, the crowd's getting larger and larger. By and large, I mean, overwhelmingly supporting Johnny Depp in the case that America is watching. Now, I don't know what you were doing this weekend, but I ended up in a TikTok rabbit hole myself. I got stuck there for a while. Let me show you just a little flavor of some of what's happening. If you haven't been there, take a look.
This is my favorite thing ever. I think he was using cocaine because it was like there was a jar. Look what I got. I got a jar of dirt. I got a jar of dirt. And guess what's inside?
This woman is innocent. Look at her eyes. That is all the proof you need.
What have you lost as a result of Ms. Heard making these allegations against you?
Nothing less than everything.
Very small sampling. You go Justice for Johnny Depp, 9.9 billion views. Justice for Amber Heard, 36 million. Let's bring in our guest, find out how this is all playing. From Los Angeles, California, chief correspondent for Variety Magazine, Elizabeth Wagmeister is with us. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us. There is a lot of buzz around Johnny Depp. How does that translate into Hollywood? Are we going to see him back in a Hollywood blockbuster?
You know, I think it's interesting because, as you said, there is immense fan support for Johnny Depp. And I think that what is trending on TikTok really speaks to that fan support around the world. As you said, billions upon billions of views right there. But I don't know if that necessarily translates into Hollywood. But have fans. But fans aren't the ones who are hiring you. And who are studios such as Disney. Even if what happens in court ends up being Johnny's case, it's still been on admitting to a volatile relationship. They're not things that you connect to the name of a movie star who is supposed to be active in families, particularly this is a movie star who's $20 million in the movie. I mean, we heard Johnny Depp himself say on the stand that from his belief that he thought that Disney that it wouldn't be safe to hire him for the next Pirate movie after Amber.
Let me ask you this, Elizabeth. The other part of the equation is Johnny Depp brought this case trying to get his name back, trying to restore something. But on the other hand, it's also having quite an impact on Amber Heard. What's your take on how this plays for Amber Heard going forward? People not loving her on social media, I'll be honest with you.
That's absolutely right. I really think that in the court of public opinion right now, Johnny Depp is winning. I think that is plain and clear when you look at Twitter, when you look at TikTok. There is a lot of fans, there's a lot of love for him. However, I think when it comes to Hollywood in both of their careers, I think they both lose in this battle. Again, they have both been on the stand. They are both talking about very disturbing and shocking allegations. No matter what's in the court, no matter what's found, the jury thinks it's true. You still have two individuals who are on the stand talking about allegations of domestic violence, admission to drug use. These are not things that Hollywood wants to put their money for and pay major salaries, because kind of the last thing that you want next to your name. You know, any press is good press, but if you're a major Hollywood studio who has to pay millions to get a movie produced and then millions to market the film, you don't want to have a star that has these sort of allegations or admissions next to their name.
Well, they used to say there's not such thing as bad publicity, but what you're telling me, there actually is, and we are witnessing it. Elizabeth Wagmeister, chief correspondent, Variety Magazine, join us tonight in L.A. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to bring in our legal think tank. How is all this playing inside the courtroom? How is it impacting the jury? We'll bring in the best to let you know. Don't go anywhere.
.com.
In Fairfax County, Virginia, the intense showdown between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, two movie stars who were once in love, now trying to convince the jury they married abusers.
She picked up a can of mineral spirits about yay big and just heaved it at me.
He said, "Oh, you really want to go now, tough guy?" Shoved me back down. "Oh, you really want to go, huh? Oh, you're so tough." I stood back up again. This time he hits me in the face.
In Boston, Massachusetts, celebrity chef Mario Batali on trial, charged with indecent assault and battery. Today, his accuser told her story.
There was touching of my breasts, touching of my rear end, touching of my sensitive feminine areas.
And she told the court she was clairvoyant. How will that impact her credibility and her story?
You said yes, and you wrote clairvoyance, right?
That's right.
Are you clairvoyant?
To a certain extent, yes.
On the docket tonight in Las Vegas, Nevada, former Playboy model Kelsey Turner charged with murdering a California doctor, getting ready for trial. Plus, tonight's 13th juror question: should Johnny Depp be criminally charged for the alleged sexual assault of Amber Heard? Buckle your seatbelts. This hour of closing arguments starts right now. I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here on Closing Arguments. So, they've got some time now. Time to prepare for next week as Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard resumes. Amber Heard's still on the witness stand. But let's take a moment here to think about what we have experienced so far in this case, in this trial. And what we've seen and heard are two completely different versions of what's happening inside this relationship. And the jury has to figure it out. It's a defamation case, but it's really a domestic violence case wrapped in defamation, right? It's being served to this jury through a defamation allegations from both sides, but it's really domestic violence allegations from both sides. Johnny Depp describing for this jury incidents where he has been physically abused by Amber Heard. And Amber Heard doing the same exact thing, telling this jury that she is a victim of Johnny Depp's physical abuse. It's tough to figure out, right? Because if you have two stories that are so different, two stories of two takes on a relationship that are completely different. On the one hand, Johnny Depp saying, listen, I never struck a woman in my life. Why would I start in my 50s? Why in my 50s would I begin doing this? And Amber Heard talking about two different Johnny Depps. One who just, in that warm bubble, who just made her life so great and was like this amazing soulmate. And then the other Johnny, the monster, who would come out and abuse her. Not only when she was alone, but in front of people as well. So let's do this right now. Let's take a look at these allegations of physical abuse by Johnny and by Amber. Let's watch.
About 6 years ago, Miss Heard brought these disturbing criminal acts against me that were not based in any species of truth.
I felt this pressure. He owned my pubic bone, and he thought he was punching me. I just remember being really still, not wanting to move. I remember looking around the room because I didn't know if it was broken. I didn't know if the bottle that he had inside me was broken.
Miss Heard was flinging insults left, right, and center, and she then grabbed that bottle and threw that at me. Her first bottle went, then got the other bottle, shot, takes the second bottle, which is the larger one. She threw the large bottle, and it made contact and shattered everywhere. The next move was just a bang, and just she clocked me in the jaw.
You know, he's drinking and we're talking and there's music playing and he's smoking cigarettes and we're sitting next to each other on the couch. And I asked him about the tattoo he has on his arm. And I said, what does it say? And he said it says wino. It says wino. And I didn't see that. I thought he was joking because it didn't look like it said that at all. And I laughed. And slapped me across the face. And I laughed. He said, you think it's so funny? You think it's funny? You think you're a funny? And he slapped me again. Like, it was clear it wasn't a joke anymore.
Never did I myself reach the point of striking Miss Heard in any way, nor have I ever struck any woman.
Chaos in this relationship. Absolute chaos. I get it. They're wrong for each other. But right now, a jury's got to figure out, well, who's the abuser and who's the abused, and what exactly is going on here? Because somebody's lying on the witness stand, and maybe somebody lied outside of court as well. Unbelievable. Let's bring in our think tank tonight. Joining us tonight in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Al Wunsch III. In Stamford, Connecticut, criminal defense attorney Darnell Crossland. And in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, family law attorney Jennifer Brand. Great to see everyone tonight. What happens here? And I'm going to start with Jennifer Brand tonight. Jennifer Brand, what if they believe both? This jury says, you know what? I believe what Johnny's saying about the physical violence. I believe what she's saying about the physical violence, about being victims. If they believe that both of them are just knocking each other around, what does that mean?
Well, Vinny, I think that is the most likely outcome here after we've heard all of this, because it's so confusing, like you said. And who do you believe? I mean, maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle, as usually is in these cases. So it's hard to say that either one is going to come out a clear winner. And I think that's what happens. Both lose their cases if the jury believes both of them, because no one will be able to prove that the other defamed, that either defamed the other. So I think that they're both going to lose this case. But I think more importantly, we have to see what happens to their reputations afterwards. I mean, clearly, Johnny Depp is becoming more popular than ever. He's probably having more fans now than even before. He's had a revival in his career. People are pulling for him. They're on social media. And Amber Heard, for whatever credibility she had before and respect, I think it's going down in the court of public opinion. I don't think people are feeling very strongly about her. So I think ultimately it may have an effect on each one of them, and probably more positive on Johnny than on Amber. But for the case itself, I don't think either one of them is going to walk away with any kind of money in this case.
All right, that was my first scenario. Darnell Crossland, my second scenario. Let's say, for instance, crazy, that the 7 people in the jury box agree with the 9.9 billion views of Justice for Johnny that we've seen on TikTok. 9.9 billion, okay? What if they believe him and do not believe her? Can he win the case?
Absolutely. It's an absolute win. If you get 9 billion views to translate to 100% of this jury, Johnny's claiming that Amber defamed him. Johnny's claiming that the story that she wrote was about him and it was all false. So if the jury believes that, Johnny wins 100%. But as we've been saying here, even if the jury doesn't believe them and it's a split verdict, Johnny still wins because he got his reputation back. He got the world to understand that he's not the bad guy that Amber painted him out. So this is a win-win for Johnny all day.
Al Wunsch, let me give you scenario 3. Wait. Before you start arguing with Darnell, I've got another question for you, okay?
I'm sorry. I've just
you're jumping ahead. Because I want to lay out these because there's three different scenarios when it comes to figuring out who's telling the truth here. What if they don't believe Johnny and his allegations that he is getting physically abused, but believe Amber that she's getting physically abused? What happens then?
Well, if then she wins. I mean,
wait. There's just cross claims here, okay? So when you say she wins, what do you mean? Do you mean
she'll win the cross claim that his attack on her was bogus, and that his attorney, who went out and saying that she was a sham and a fraud and everything else along those lines, was proven to be incorrect, and that the judge in England was correct when there was demonstration of physical abuse by Johnny Depp upon Amber Heard. And, I mean, I don't think anyone wins in this trial regardless. I think that this entire thing has destroyed both of their careers. And so be it. It's been great for us. It's been great for Court TV. That's the most important thing. But for them, this is an absolute travesty and a nightmare and a mockery of a sham. There's no other way to describe it. It is so disheartening to watch this. I mean, I came up with 13 points that I've seen with this trial, okay, that from the beginning. And I would put it this way. 1, wind passing. 2, gummies. 3, wrong concealer. 4, jar of dirt. 5, jar of Coke. 6, difference between a punch and a hit. 7, Coke makes you calm, which is unbelievable. 8, poop, there it is. 9, Adderall, cocaine, and lewds, oh my. 10, tearless sobs. 11, congruous hand gestures. 12, bottles everywhere, and not the kind you drink. And in the final, MDMA. That's it. Those 13 points is what I've learned from this trial. And it all points to 2 idiots fighting against each other.
A push. That neither one wins. This is, and here's where I want to figure out how this jury goes. There's only 7 members of this jury. Why is the response of the public so overwhelming on the one hand, and on the other hand, everyone is saying Johnny Depp, well, not everyone, but a lot of people saying Johnny Depp's not going to win. Like Al, you're saying he's not going to win, right?
Right.
Jennifer Brandt, you're saying he's not going to win. Like, how do you, and let's go to Jennifer first, because Al took like 6 minutes on the last answer.
And I don't have 13 points, so I don't know what to do now.
No, they're all good points. They're well taken. But Jennifer, it's so overwhelming, the public response, that do you think it does not translate to the jurors who are watching this?
No, I don't think it translates to the jurors. I think the jurors are going to take their job seriously. I think they're going to follow the law, the judge's instructions. I think they're going to do the right thing. And I think the reason that we're saying that it's not going to be a court win for Johnny, maybe a public opinion win for Johnny, but not a court win, is because if you believe that he did hit her or attack her in any way, then he really can't win a defamation trial. So I think that there's enough going on here between these two who were a toxic mix, who should have never gotten together, that I think the jury can be convinced that maybe he did lay a hand on her. Maybe he did. Maybe not to the extent that she's describing, but they were definitely at each other. So I think that's where his case falls apart.
Go ahead, Darnell.
I thought about this case long and hard, and let's just take our time for a little bit. The idea here was that when Amber wrote that article, she was trying to be the face of women who were suffering from domestic violence. And I liken this whole situation to the civil rights movement. When Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on that bus, you best believe she wasn't the only one, but she was the face that the movement can go with, because she was wholesome. She was a secretary for the NAACP. She was a church-going woman. She was the person that Martin Luther King and everyone said, we will go with her. What I've learned from this trial is that while Amber tried to be the Rosa Parks for domestic violence, now that we've seen how ugly her life is, she's not the face. She's no Rosa Parks for domestic violence. And so her whole attempt to be the face for women suffering has fallen apart. And even worse, people are not going to believe women who cry out for help if Amber Heard is going to be the reference point on which to look.
All right. Al Wunsch, Darnell Crossland, Jennifer Brain, all staying with us, even with him shaking his head. When we come back, another trial started today here on Court TV. Up in Massachusetts, celebrity chef Mario Batali, his accuser, testified today. Wait till you hear what she had to say about the allegations and what came out on cross-examination. Apparently, she's clairvoyant. That's next.
with Worthy.com.
There was touching of my breasts, touching of my rear end, touching of my sensitive feminine areas, in between my legs, touching all over my face, his lips on the side of my face, his tongue in my ear.
That was Mario Batali, celebrity chef, listening to the woman accusing him of indecent assault and battery. It's some nasty stuff. I mean, it's happening in front of everyone, right? I mean, she's in a restaurant wanting to take a selfie with him. I want you to hear more of her testimony because this trial is going to move very, very, very quickly. Not a ton of witnesses, but this is the most important one, the accuser. Let's listen.
So I'm standing, and Mario Batali is sitting on his seat at the bar. I'm on the right side, and well, he's to my left, and he's seated.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that you are standing next to him taking those pictures while he's sitting down?
Yes.
On a bar stool?
Yes.
Okay. And what hand were you taking those selfies with?
I was taking them with my right hand.
Okay, and Mr. Batali's on your left side?
Yes.
Okay, and in many of those photographs, you can see Mr. Batali's left hand pulling your face. Can you tell us what his right hand was doing?
Yep, so his right hand is all over my breast, all over my rear end, in between my legs, grabbing me in a way that I've never been touched before like that, like squeezing in between my legs, squeezing my vagina to pull me closer to him, like as if that's a normal way to grab someone, just between the legs to pull them towards you.
Let's bring back in our think tank, Al Wunsch, Darnell Crossland, Jennifer Brandt with us. Darnell, your thoughts? I mean, we saw with the Cuba Gooding Jr. case, which there was actual security video of, he ended up pleading guilty. Things like this can happen in a restaurant, in public, in front of people. What are your thoughts about the accuser's testimony?
I'm not following it at all. One thing that is very important when you have these criminal trials is whether the testimony and the demonstration can match. So sometimes we get in the middle of the well in court and try to reenact. And when I'm hearing her saying that he grabbed her by her crotch to pull her closer, I mean, you can grab somebody by the lapels or by the arm, but I don't see someone in that public space grabbing them by their crotch and pulling them closer. It's just not falling apart. I mean, the whole thing is falling apart. So it makes no sense to me.
Al Wunsch, I want you to take a listen to a piece of the cross-examination here because a little fact came out that, okay, let's just listen to it first, and then we'll try to figure out what it means here.
And then you show up to jury duty, and there's a question that's asked, if you've been a victim of a crime, you didn't check that box.
Because at that point I did not check that box.
Okay, that's exhibit, it's in evidence, identified as 41, right?
Which 41?
Let's see, exhibit number, I'm sorry. It's exhibit 11. But instead, you wrote, your father was a witness to murder.
That's right.
And then you wrote, is there anything else in your background, experience, employment, training, education that might affect your ability to be an impartial juror? You said yes, and you wrote clairvoyance, right?
That's right.
Are you clairvoyant?
To a certain extent, yes.
Al Wunsch, the accuser, testifying under oath. To a certain extent, she's clairvoyant.
Yes, and Vin, I'm rubbing my magic space artifact because I too am clairvoyant, and I see a not guilty finding from Mario Batali in this matter. If she was so clairvoyant, Vin, how did she know not to get away from this guy that he was going to molest her? I mean, that's the whole thing about clairvoyance. You know before it happens that it's going to happen, so she should have gotten away. So we have a situation here where she's actually contributory negligent to her own fondling.
There was another piece. Go ahead, Darnell. Go ahead.
I was saying her clairvoyance was leading her straight to the bank. She saw a big paycheck at the end of the day.
That's right.
That's not clairvoyance. That's greed and avarice, which I have to be dead set against.
Let's take a listen to more of the cross-examination here, Jennifer, because again, another little fact here that I think the defense will make a big deal about, but I'm not sure if it is.
Testified in your deposition that it made you sick to see a jar of pasta with his face on it, right?
That's kind of repulsive, yes.
And it made you sick to walk into Italy. It would have made you sick to walk in there at all and see his face on a pasta jar, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was very disgusted with Batali, yeah. Knowing...
You were disgusted, embarrassed, humiliated, right?
That's right.
It would be triggering for you to go into Italy. It would be, you'd have intrusive memories.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, but I'm also not gonna, I mean, it's in the mall. Like, if I pass Italy, I'm gonna...
But you actually did go to Italy, like 4 weeks after this assault, didn't you?
I don't remember that.
Okay, there were some audio issues in part of that. Jennifer, let me break it down for you and everyone else so they know exactly what was going there. The cross-examination said that she said, the accuser said it made her sick to see Mario Batali's face on a pasta jar. I think he meant pasta sauce. Pasta doesn't come in a jar, comes in a box. But seeing his face on the pasta jar made her sick. Then he said, but then 4 weeks later you went to Italy. Now, not the country, but there's a restaurant chain, very famous, called Italy. Mario, his face is all over the place because he used to own it before all his legal troubles. And she says she doesn't remember going there. So does this undermine her credibility at all? That perhaps if this jury believes she goes to his restaurant 4 weeks after being molested by him, but then can't bear to see his face on a jar of his pasta sauce?
Absolutely. This and everything else we've heard thus far undermines her credibility. I mean, I think this woman's problem is she's apparently sent a lot of text messages about collecting money from him, about going to Italy, and saying it was expensive or something along those lines. I mean, she has the problem that you always tell clients, watch what you put in writing. Don't go out there and start texting things because they can come back and bite you in court if you're trying to pursue a court case. And I think that's going to be her problem. And to Darnell and Al's point, I mean, she's taking a selfie and claiming that he's groping her in various ways that are clearly disturbing. And how she can still take those pictures while all this is going on is beyond me. So I just think nothing is adding up here, Vinnie. Unfortunately, she is just making sort of a mess of this, and I think it will be over very, very quickly.
All right, Darnell, I have one follow-up for you, and in this, take us behind the curtain, right? A criminal defense attorney and his client decide we don't want a jury, we're going to let the judge hear it. What does that mean?
Well, what it really means is that they've decided that the matter for the judge to decide is strictly a legal matter. And so we always say if you have a heavily factually sensitive case, you take it to a jury because the juries can decipher that. But if it's strictly a legal matter, something by the statute, you want to say, well, this is something a judge could handle, you go to a judge. This is a bad decision. I would never take something like this to a judge because even if the judge wants to look at the law but feel sorry for this individual, you have one person to sway. I'd rather have it before a jury of several, 6 to 8 people to sway. And what I say also her big problem is that you can't have selective memory. So she appears to remember a lot of things good, and then sometimes she doesn't remember even going to a restaurant. So I think that's going to be her problem from a factual standpoint as well.
Al, once we only have 15 seconds.
Okay.
You decide to put this in front of a judge instead of a jury. Does that tell you anything?
It tells me that I'm afraid that a jury's going to take a look at this as a celebrity individual and use it against him, and a judge won't do that. So that's the only thing I say. I had an MMA fighter, and I had it in front of a judge on a case because I thought the jury would just take a look at him and just say, forget it, he must have beat the crap out of the guy.
Gotcha. All right. When we come back, we're going to take you on the docket. Another big trial that we are tracking that is coming up this summer out of Las Vegas. Former Playboy model accused of murdering a doctor from California. Wow. Kelsey Turner getting ready to go to trial. On the docket tonight, the Playboy model murder trial. Ted Rowlands has the story.
Renowned psychiatrist Dr. Thomas Burchard had been missing for 3 days when his body was found in the trunk of an abandoned BMW in the desert outside of Las Vegas. Judy Earp, his girlfriend of 17 years, was back at their home in California and sensed the doctor was in trouble.
I told him repeatedly that these are not, the kind of people you want to be associating with.
Judy was worried about this woman, 25-year-old Playboy and Maxim model Kelsey Turner. Judy says Kelsey was extorting money from Dr. Burchard.
About $300,000 that I know about, and possibly more.
Burchard had a history of helping others and engaging with young, attractive girls he met online, like Kelsey. That's according to his friend, who did not want to be identified when he was interviewed by KSBW.
These women were just like an escape for him to have somewhere to go. He told me he met Kelsey on the website and met up with her, and they talked, and they went and had dinner a few times.
Dr. Burchard's friend says the psychiatrist started spending time and money on Kelsey, even renting this condo in Salinas, California for Kelsey and her mother to live along with Kelsey's child. Even after Dr. Burchard stopped paying the rent and Kelsey moved to Vegas, the two did keep in contact. And shortly before the murder, Kelsey reached out to the doctor, according to his friend.
He says, seems that Kelsey's having some trouble with her boyfriend out there in Vegas. He's hitting her, he's abusing her, and she has no money, nowhere to go. And I feel partly responsible for this.
Court documents show that Kelsey Turner was, in fact, reported as the victim in a domestic violence case less than a month before the doctor's murder. Dr. Burchard went to Vegas to see Kelsey, calling his girlfriend Judy only after he had arrived, saying he was spending the weekend and would be back on Monday.
I warned him on Saturday when he was there that, maybe you ought not wait till Monday to come home. Maybe you ought to just come home on the next flight.
After missing his flight and not responding to calls and texts, Judy called Las Vegas police. Dr. Burchard's body was found near Lake Mead, about 25 miles outside Vegas.
The actual incident occurred at a residence in the Las Vegas Valley, and then the body was found out by the lake.
This is the Las Vegas home where Kelsey and her boyfriend John Kennison were living and where investigators believe Dr. Burchard was murdered. Kelsey's roommate, Diana Pena, told a grand jury that Kennison attacked Dr. Burchard with a baseball bat and that after the initial attack, Kelsey insisted that her boyfriend knock him out. Pena also testified that the attack left Kennison covered in blood. According to arrest warrants, police recovered a bag from the Rio Hotel. It's where prosecutors say Turner, Kennison, and Pena fled to after the murder. Inside that bag, investigators found sheets of paper ripped from Dr. Burchard's notebook that contained his banking information and passwords.
Additional information has come to light.
Kelsey Turner was arrested in California 3 weeks after police recovered Burchard's body. Her extradition was delayed after it was determined that she was pregnant. She has since given birth to a girl while in custody. Her boyfriend, John Kennison, was arrested a few weeks later in Las Vegas. Both are facing murder charges. Kelsey's roommate, Diana Pena, pleaded guilty to accessory to murder and is expected to testify at their trials.
What exactly will her defense be, right? It's her car. She had the relationship with him, but there's two other people involved here. Al Wunsch, Darnell Crossland, Jennifer Brandt back with us. Al, where do you think Kelsey Turner, the former Playboy model, goes with the defense here?
Well, I mean, you've got a situation where you've got the Fink, you've got the rat, you could go after her, which is what the boyfriend seems to be doing. But I got to tell you, Ven, I went through my extensive Playboy archives, and I even consulted the Bible, okay, of Playboy. This is inside the Playboy mansion, signed by Hef himself, and I found no pictures of Kelsey Turner.
It was the Italian version of Playboy, Al.
Oh.
There you go. Darnell,
I'm sorry.
your thoughts for Kelsey Turner? I mean, what is she going to say? Everyone has a defense, right? Every time we cover a trial, someone's accused, especially murder, they always have a defense. What's hers going to be?
Yeah, well, you have to look at the statute. So murder is an intentional killing of another. And anything less will be manslaughter. Maybe it was reckless. In this particular case,
It was in the trunk in the car in the desert, Darnell. That's not an accident.
Absolutely, but the thing is that there's a gentleman who's sitting there with some teardrops on his eyes or some kind of things, which normally means you have a body on your hand in the past. So that boyfriend of hers might have gone too far. She might have said, hey, let me get the doctor out here and we can probably grab his ATM card. And then this boyfriend probably took it to another level and killed him. So her defense is probably going to be, at this point, she didn't do it. And they're gonna have to prove that she did it. So it probably would end up that she was she conspired with this boyfriend to bring him out there, which would be felony murder, which is when a death occurs in the commission of a felony. But right now, I think she's gonna just hold steady and let them have to prove their case, and then she might turn state's evidence and testify against the boyfriend. But right now, less is more for her.
Jennifer Brandt, you know, I look at the nature of the relationship she had with the doctor. I mean, she's the one that has the relationship, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. No member of that jury is going to look at her and say, oh, too bad. No, they know what the nature of that relationship was. The doctor's, you know, longtime girlfriend warned him not to go out there.
Yeah, should have listened to his girlfriend. She seemed like she was pretty responsible and that she gave him really good advice. But still, nonetheless, whatever he may have done and whatever he thought he was doing by helping out Kelsey, he shouldn't end up dead for it. And
no,
I think
not at all.
The jury's gonna, you know, the jury's gonna look for someone to blame, and it looks like Kelsey or her boyfriend. They're trying to pin it on the roommate, but the roommate's gonna come in and testify and say, you know, that they did it and she was just a bystander there and saw what went on. So I think her testimony is going to really help help us figure out who actually did this, and or if it was both of them.
Yeah, it was an awful attack, Al. And do you think she'll talk about why would I kill the golden goose, right? This is the guy who's providing her and her mother at one point a place to live. Someone, you know, she says, come to Vegas, and there he is. He shows up. It almost seems like there would be no motive to take his life.
There is a motive if he's decided that he's going to stop, you know, providing for her, and that he's going to cut off her supply, and he's going to distance himself from her. Sounds to me like the girlfriend was giving him, you know, garbage about that, and that he needed to move on and to just break away from that point of his life. And, you know, you have a situation where you're used to that fix, and you're going to lose that. You go into withdrawal. And when you go into withdrawal, you do things that you don't control, and you do things that are stupid. And in this type of a situation, he was probably saying, I'm done. And they said, no, you're not. And then they killed him.
Well, check it out, folks. This trial's coming up very soon. We've got a trial date of June 27th. Status hearing the week before. Trial date, June 27th in Las Vegas, Nevada. When we come back, we're going to talk more about Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. Amber Heard, the accusations she has made, and I'm saying this over and over and over again, are criminal in nature. How about that alleged sex assault? Well, posted on social media asking you, do you think Johnny Depp should be charged with a crime or at least investigated for a crime? Your verdict when we return.
4.
The next thing I remember, I was bent over backwards on the bar, meaning my chest was up. I was staring at the blue lights and my chest was on this, my back was on the countertops. And I thought he was punching me. I felt this pressure. He on my pubic bone, and he thought he was punching me. And I remember that he's just not wanting to move because I didn't know if it was broken. I didn't know if the bottle that he had inside me was broken.
What more do you recall?
Sorry, it took me a minute to respond because it's hard. It took me a minute to respond because I had not remembered seeing the bottle that Johnny was using on me. I didn't have a memory of seeing it. And this picture, I wasn't aware of until just the other day, yesterday, the day before. And I felt my stomach tighten up, like I was gonna be sick when I saw it. Because even though I didn't remember seeing the bottle, what I had remembered is a pressure, like something square, which is why I thought he was punching me. And I hadn't seen this bottle, I didn't know. And then this came out in Ben's evidence because he didn't share it until this date.
Objection, Your Honor, sustained.
And so I recognize it.
Dramatic moment there where she sees a picture of a bottle, identifies it as the bottle that was used to sexually assault her. And she hadn't seen it until it was provided in evidence by Johnny Depp's team. Wow. Posted this on social media asking you, based upon what Amber Heard is saying, should Johnny Depp be charged with a crime? We begin with our 13th juror. Comment of the day comes from Cindy D, who says, no, she's the criminal here. She's the abuser. If something like this occurred, she would have needed medical attention. No evidence of anything other than her bad acting job. Al Wunsch, the medical attention, that is a theme that comes up time and time again from our 13th juror, that they want to hear something like getting medical attention for an attack like this. Your thoughts about the lack of medical attention and whether or not there's enough here for even a criminal investigation?
Well, there's not enough here for a investigation unless she's going to go down to a police station and swear out a complaint against him, because in the only instance where the police arrived, they didn't see anything. The cops would have had to write a defense for domestic violence if they saw any type of either destroyed stuff in the premises or any mark on her. And the police officer that already testified said that when she came to the scene, she didn't see anything. So at least in New Jersey, in order to get a criminal complaint, she would have to go down and swear, and judge would have to find probable cause. And one of the things that would be asked would be, one, why did you wait so long? And then two, what proof do you have that there was any type of injury, especially since you spoke about blood? And you would think that if you were going to be attacked in that specific area of your body, you would want to get some form of medical attention.
Eve, tonight, if she has proof, then yes, someone needs to do a lie detector test on both of them. Darnell Crossland, you believe in lie detectors?
No, I don't, actually. They're not admissible, for one. And two, I think I would fail probably all of them because they make you nervous. And so I agree with the courts. We can't rely on lie detector tests because of the whole way it works. I just want to add, when I look at when she was testifying just now, I mean, That was really, really, really dramatic. And when I looked at Johnny Depp's face, he was really moved emotionally by what she was saying. I'm not sure if he got flashbacks himself, but something about that testimony, when you look at the split screen, he was very, very moved. And I don't mean upset about it. I mean, he's probably hurting just seeing her going through that because he loved her once. And I think that we're all humans, and it probably hurts to see her go through that, even if she's, acting a little bit.
Jamie tonight, she's an actress, and if he did all that she said he did, she would be in the hospital. She's a liar, and it is sad that she's doing this. The bottle incident, if that happened, she would be torn up inside. She is sick. Jennifer Brandt, the jury heard from an expert who said that she's borderline personality, histrionic disorder as well. Do you think when they hear a story like this, where she's talking about all of a sudden now, years later, seeing a picture of the bottle, that she now recognizes the bottle? What do you think they're making of all that?
Vinny, I just think, this testimony is so disturbing and so horrific that, I can't fathom that anyone could totally make this up. On the other hand, if this happened to her, why she didn't call the police? Why didn't she get out of there? She's somebody who has resources. She has people. She has managers. She has people around her. She's not helpless. And why she stayed there and spent the time there, and she said she took some sleeping pills and then went to sleep after this whole incident, and then a week or two later went to the Bahamas with Johnny Depp and his family. I just can't believe that someone who endured something that she describes could just continue on and not do anything about it. So I think that's the biggest problem here. That's why I don't think they're criminal charges. And I think that's why we're all sort of shaking our heads in disbelief. And I think that Johnny Depp looked upset, not because of his emotions, but I think he was maybe angry inside for listening to this and maybe in just a state of disbelief.
We are out of time. Al Wunsch, Darnell Crossland, Jennifer Brandt, thank you so much. We'll see you again real soon. We'll be right back.